Okay, here is a quick attempt at documenting how I'm installing Brunch OS with a Ventoy setup. As always, your mileage may vary. I'm just doing what seems so far to be the least worst choice for me. And you could certainly insert any Linux distribution's ISO file in that setup. And this is a freshly created stick. It doesn't have a lot of other tools on it like I usually use with Ventoy. At some point, I'm going to have to get serious and buy some equipment and stop fucking around trying to use a phone camera on a tripod like this. This is dumb. Okay, so we should begin by activating a network connection. Since I don't have access to Ethernet, which may or may not be as reliable depending on your hardware anyway, assuming your device even has an Ethernet port or if you've got a dongle that works. You're usually going to be dealing with Wi-Fi, so let's try that. You can't assume that your Linux distribution is up to date and or has the necessary tools for this installation. So, and it doesn't hurt to try that, but I'm going to try and stay on the documented path here. Uh, there we go. Uh, it's a good password if you can never type it. Okay, so let's see if we can get this thing to work. Most Linux distributions will have something like My Computer or Computer. Come on. Huh. Does not want to open. That's super neato. Huh. Anyway, and you can see kind of how this is coming up. Ventoy has a bunch of partitions. Uh, I probably should have given this a better label. In the past with Ventoy, I've had issues with just not doing 100% default on the setup, and it's been I don't build Ventoy sticks that often, so I'm very leery about changing anything. I know from the size that this is. So this stick is a 64 gigabyte thumb drive. 48 gigabytes is just your standard Ventoy where you can dump bootable image files like ISOs. The remaining 16 gigabytes is where I store things that I need to use when I boot an operating system. So you can boot an operating system and then it can basically mount the stick that it booted from and let you access the files, if that makes sense. Wow, having issues with this mouse. Okay, so, and you certainly don't need to use Ventoy either. You could just boot from any Linux distribution and then either use another thumb drive connected to another USB port, one port to boot from, and then a port to access data. Other options are there are tools and methods of inserting data into existing ISOs or burning an ISO and then modifying the file system so that it has some sort of an accessible subdirectory. If you want to do that, I find the Ventoy method just easier, and I'm all about saving 5 or 10 minutes here or there. And based on my experience, whatever seems to be least likely to crash or fail. Your mileage may vary. So, wow, this mouse sucks. Anytime you try and show anybody anything, shit doesn't work. Come on. Interesting. Having a lot of issues with this mouse. Okay. So I can add this to the description. Let's see here. Wow. So this mouse is not working. That is great. Which can happen depending on the driver you're using. Okay, so I don't remember where I found this, if it was another YouTube video or if I was reading something on Reddit. Some people have had really good luck running a script to install it versus if you follow the Brunch OS instructions on the actual Brunch project page. That their method is very consistent, but it's more involved to set up, and it's a real pain in the ass as there's changes. It's not easy to update, but so their stuff works off of a stick that you create. You're not having to deal with all of this other stuff, but because all of this stuff, Chrome OS, the installer scripts and everything are Linux based, is pretty portable, and hence why this method works. And I think the original scripts that Brunch OS uses were pretty agnostic in terms of source and destination, if that makes sense. And it's all standard Linux, excuse me. So anyway, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to update this stuff. And hopefully the mouse cooperates. Seem to be having issues. And come on. This is going to be hard to see. So let's see if we can make this a little bigger. Well, I guess you kind of get what you get, but very awkward for me to try and use a keyboard connected to a laptop. And the viewing angle sucks. So it wouldn't hurt to skip these. If you have like a consistent batch of hardware and if it works well on one, why not? I never know. So for an example, I always walk through making sure that the Linux distribution you're using is current and has the tools that the installation script requires. Hence why we're doing this. You can skip all of this and play around if you want. Couldn't hurt because you can always just do it again. And the reason that I'm executing these line by line, the script, these update procedures are pretty wonky and they don't always work. I could probably have done it for this example, but I think it's important when you're just starting to run them and then look at the debugged output SPU, and or make sure that something didn't fail. Because again, if you get a lot of random weirdness, you might have to reboot the Linux distribution and or try another port. Uh, I've also had laptops that are just really shitty as far as maintaining a connection to the internet, and the stuff doesn't work. So you don't always see that as quickly when you're running a script. Your mileage may vary. Proceed however you want. It's just first couple times I'm showing people stuff. This is what I would suggest, but Ford versus Chevy, nobody ever agrees on anything. Oh, that was dorky. Having a hard time seeing the screen from this angle.